أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Welcome to Collective Conversations with Khalifas. So far, I'm the only one here in attendance. I'm expecting the rest of the crew to join us shortly. And those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us. A lot we could talk about tonight. As usual, I don't want to drive the conversation on my own. Lots of things on my mind. But definitely wanted to talk about, obviously, some things that are going on in the world, including the person who currently occupies the presidency of the United States, ordering a federal takeover of law enforcement in the federal district and deploying the National Guard troops there. Anything to draw attention away from the disaster that is his administration, the rising prices, the tariffs, the immigration acts that his administration has taken on, some very unlawful in nature, the attacks on diversity, the just almost lawless approach that his administration has taken to the way that they choose not to respect customary laws and actions that citizens of this country have become familiar with and comfortable with. You know, habeas corpus, things of that nature, seems to pay him no heed. He's almost like a person who knows he's about to die and wants to inflict as much pain as he possibly can. But again, I personally don't want to be the one driving the conversation. There was also a shooting today in Austin, Texas at a Target store. Last I heard, 3 people were dead. If you know anything about the state of Texas and what's been going on for the last few days, it's everybody getting ready to go back to school, parents and their children out doing last minute shopping for clothes and shoes and supplies. These stores are full of families. And the fact that our gun laws are so lax, and the fact that we have people who should not be within 100 miles of a gun having ready access to it. We've seen what's happened in the last few days. Austin today, Atlanta, Georgia, I think Friday or Saturday, the Pennsylvania shootings. I want to say the Montana shootings. You know, obviously Fort Stewart, that's on everybody's mind, and definitely praying for everybody that was involved in that. I don't think there were any fatalities, but still a very sad situation. And I know that I'm probably missing something that has happened in that vein, and that's not to downplay the explosion of the steel at the steel plant in western Pennsylvania today, just south of Pittsburgh. I understand that one person is confirmed dead there. One person they still have not been able to find under the rubble. Several people injured, and thankfully, I don't think any of them are in critical condition or anything of that nature. And then the huge story out of Gaza are 4 journalists. One of them, an award-winning journalist with Al Jazeera, were targeted and killed today by IDF forces, Israeli Defense Forces. No justification some kind of a blurb that they thought that this gentleman was working for Hamas. He's a longtime respected journalist with Al Jazeera, reporting the truth, which the state of Israel cannot stomach anybody reporting the truth. So, I mean, hey, I'm not going to run out of steam, but I'm starting to wind down a little bit. But one of the other things that I wanted to touch on today, and I'm going to read this into the record as best I can, and I'm not going to tell you who this person is. If they are listening and wish to come on and comment, that is fine. But I think this needs to be heard. This is from someone within the community of Imam or Muhammad, and fairly passionate about the community. And my apologies beforehand for any mispronunciations or misspeaking anything. The person writes, Amin, and work righteous deeds. Human beings can have nothing but what he or she strives for. O Allah, grant us the excellence in this life and the excellence in the life and the hereafter, and protect us from the torment and the punishment of the hellfire, including mediocrity and complacency that leads us to limited progress. Crabs in the barrel mentality and envy, jealousy, and Negroism. Grant us whatever a Muslim endeavors he or she perfects it. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, talking from experience of working with an imam for over 30 years, teaching the community that were following the nation and that came into the community after following the nation and not knowing Salat or Wudu. And Allah blessed us because we raised standards, education, and exhibited consistent leadership. A true follower of Imam W.D. Muhammad and 10-year resident Imam, coming into the nation at a very young age. Blessed to be aware, since I was very young, and witnessed what happened behind the scene in building family and community life. Imam W.D. Muhammad complained about people parroting him, saying he said this, I am Muhammad, Imam Muhammad said that, and not doing the work, putting things into practical application. There must be a change in this trajectory. Inshallah, we should have new Africa in every state. He or she gets what they strive for. Negroism and a mindset that leads to idolatry, materialism, broken homes, abuse, neglect, and unbalanced spiritual services and dysfunction cannot achieve success. Person continues, we have too much pacifying and sweet talk, henpecked mindsets, according to the particular brother who was formerly with the IWDM community. Currently, he is not under any specific group and travels frequently to the Middle East and Africa. At first, I was offended and corrected him, but it's been 2 years since he said it. I corrected him repeatedly. However, during these last 2 years, I have come to realize much of what he says does exist. Through Allah's guided observation, we as a community must be honest with ourselves. We utilize the roles Allah gave us, the natural pressure from the female nature to motivate the masculine nature to employ and build model communities. African-American men tend to hide behind their females in a henpecked way when it comes to strategic planning and practical application in the IWDM community. Therefore, we have a lack of progress. There is a whole surah in the Quran that talks about the men who wanted to stay behind with the women and children when Prophet Muhammad was ordered by Allah to fight in his cause. They wanted to stay in their homes because of fragility, because they felt somebody needed to stay behind. Allah exposed them to the Prophet as having a lack of faith. We have excessive amounts of divorce in our leadership. Disregard for being maintainers and providers. We have hundreds of women and children not being protected or maintained. Therefore, Allah has not changed our condition. We also have excessive sports and play, including cultural events. We must do a self-assessment so we can bring about solutions. It begins in the soul itself. What are your thoughts? This is a question. This is where Allah is inspiring me in community growth and development as a Khalifa. Imam Muhammad, in an address to sisters, said female intuition and motivation is a gift from Allah to ensure they are maintained and protected. Imam Muhammad said not to ignore those gut feelings. Yes, be sweet, gentle, and kind, but be balanced. The feminine nature was designed by Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to motivate the masculine nature. An example in one of Imam Muhammad's lectures, if we need a house instead of an apartment, do the family growth to inspire him to make it happen. I will be pulling from his lectures on the masculine and feminine nature, inshallah. In addition, our young adult sisters are concerned. They see women like Professor, and I'm not going to give a name, or Sister so-and-so, strong leaders who were once married to brothers in our community. These women are great examples of leadership, but they choose to stay single for decades. This spikes growing concern among young adults about marriage in our community. So that kind of concludes the reading of that and what that particular believer had on their minds. This obviously coming on the heels of a wonderful weekend, August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Philadelphia, celebrating 50 years of this community following the leadership of Imam Warithuddin Muhammad. So I see that I have my brother Imam Tariq Abdul with us. Assalamu alaikum, Imam MuMin.
Wa alaikum assalam, brother Edward. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I started reading that commentary last night, and then it bled over into this morning. I don't know if you were on that text thread or not.
Yes, I was. When you say it came over into this morning, on what format?
Well, the same thing in text. I mean, I think you probably heard the stuff from last night, but there was more that started coming in. I'm in Central Time. So the first one this morning, I got hit at 6 a.m.
No, I got the text message, but you said you were sharing it somewhere else this morning.
No, I haven't shared it. That's the first time I shared it. What I just read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got that text.
So what were you thinking? Because there's two different pieces here. Number one is when you first started reading it, especially what came down this morning, what were your initial thoughts? And as the day goes on and you have an opportunity to digest it, did your thoughts change? Did they grow deeper? I mean, where are you with what was said now?
At this current time, I can't give any feedback because my reading of it, when it came through, was just basically with my eyes and not with my mind, if you understand what I'm saying. And I had intentions of going back, reading it with my mind. So I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. But I know just reading it with my eyes, there's some serious statements there, there's some concerns there. because I am aware of, and maybe I did read it with my mind now since I'm thinking about it, but I am aware of the persons in our community, not just the ones that was the one or two that was somewhat mentioned, the amount of persons in our community that are not married. Some are even saying that they don't want to marry, and we cannot accept that, or should not accept that as our thought process, regardless of what has happened in previous marriages. Because if we accept the teaching or the saying of Prophet Muhammad that whoever chooses to live a life as a single person is not of my tradition. So it is something to really give some thought to. It really is.
So let me ask you this, because I understand exactly what you just said, and I understand the sunnah that thought comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the current situation that exists, and I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for anybody, including myself. You have, for the most part, what I see is people who are north of 50 who possibly, very possibly, have been outside of a marriage relationship close to a decade, many. And the situations that led to the dissolution, and this is a reach on my part, but the situations that led to a dissolution of their previous marriage very possibly still exist with any parties that they would look to marry because of a mindset of the way a relationship is supposed to be structured and administered. So if the person that you could marry thinks exactly the way the person that you were previously married to, or close enough that it could be the shadow, then you either not get married or you're going to get married and it's going to be a very short marriage. And I actually see from the outside looking in, because I'm just one person, but from what I hear people say as their representation as to who they are, that unless there is some mindset change, or at least some softening, it's hard to predict a positive outcome for these people who are north of 50 getting married and staying married. What do you think?
I'm trying to see how to comment on that one. Getting married and staying married from the north of 50. That's
Brother,
challenging.
I witnessed a marriage, and the brother I knew really well. I thought I knew him really well, and he was a close associate of Imam Muhammad, traveled with him on many occasions. He's one of several I could comment on, but I'm going to leave it to this one particular brother who traveled with the Imam. And he married a woman who moved halfway across the country to marry him. And that lasted 2 weeks. And the only reason I tell you that I know is that I was called in by the Imam to be the witness to the signature of the divorce papers.
Mm. Now, let me ask you this. The Imam that called you in was the Imam that married?
That married them, yeah. He was also the Imam that
no, not the officiant, but the Imam that got married to the sister. Did he call you in?
No. It was the brother
the one who officiated.
The brother who was married to the sister was not an Imam. He's a prominent brother in our community.
Okay, I got you now. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And still is highly respected in our community, even though he actually does more work in interfaith these days than he does for our community. But that's also good, people working in interfaith. But anyway, I mean, I'm just saying, I was there and I witnessed what the sister said as the reason for her wanting to divorce him. And it was all her. She 2 weeks was enough for her. And this is a very professional sister, who left a nice professional position in another city to come halfway across the country and marry this brother. So based on what she said, and then based on other anecdotal, because I've never talked directly to either of the two parties, so this is second, third, maybe even fourth hand of some of the reasons that some sisters in particular, because trust me, sisters talk more than brothers do about these things. The picture that they paint would lead you to think that there has been a total miseducation to brothers as to what being married, and I'm not all brothers, but to a certain kind of brother, as to what being married is all about. And it doesn't seem like a lot of brothers are following the example of the prophet.
True to that.
So, I mean, and I don't know how you can have a model community or New Africa, as this person called for New Africa in every state. I don't know how you can have that unless you have the type of family structure.
That's right.
That leads to you having a tight community where people are positive, thinking brightly about the future, willing to make sacrifices, all those things. You need a secure environment. Physical security, emotional security, financial security, different levels. I mean, not everybody is rich and people are striving to get better and all that type of thing all the time. So we're not talking about clones, but we are talking about people that have the same kind of mindset about the way a life is to be lived. And that allows for that particular household in that community to be a strong, resilient household. And then your neighbors can also trust your direction. And that leads to more overall openness in a community sharing of resources, sharing of ideas. You know, the old days, like when you and I were children, you know, you could go into anybody's house and they're going to give you some cookies and some Kool-Aid and watch you and treat you like you were their child until your parents got home from whatever thing was going on or whatever. You know, you felt safe in those environments. So I mean, those are model communities to me, something similar to that. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ishmael. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to assume this is Sister Martha at American Muslim 360. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Please correct me.
Assalamu alaikum, Ishmael.
American Muslim 360, let us know who you are there so we can greet you appropriately.
Can you hear me?
We can barely hear you, and
like
I'm going to say
Martha.
that is Sister Munirah. Habeel, how are you?
Alhamdulillah. Doing well. I'll change the name on the icon.
Okay. Now that, I mean, we know who you are now, so all is good. All is good. So everything that this individual shared in the text, and I apologize, Sister Munirah and Brother Ishmael. I read this very extensive long text that someone in our community shared with a bunch of people about their concerns about the community. And just one portion of it that we were talking about is and Sister Munirah, you are all over this, is the large number of people who are north of 50 in our community who are single. And some of them being very prominent members of our community, as this person who wrote the text pointed out. And the fact that, in their words, it's very difficult to create these model communities and new Africa settlements that we want when you don't have these strong relationships, marriages, which are strengthening to community in their own right, if it was just their existence, but also as a model for younger people. And it was one of the things that this person wrote is about young women in our community looking around and not seeing strong marriages in large numbers. There's nothing for them to model and to look at and say, oh yes, I want to be exactly like that when I'm with my husband. And I'm sure young men probably in their own way, though we as men mature later than our sisters. But still, the young men have to be looking and saying, you know, hey, I don't have to be serious about this marriage thing right now. I mean, look, Mr. So-and-so, he's 53, he's, you know, cat daddy, and he's single, and, you know, his business is going good, and he drives a nice car, and he's doing all right, and people respect him. So why do I need to be in a rush? I mean, that's the way young men think like that. If you don't believe me, go talk to some. Because I talk to them every day. And they're in no hurry. They might halfway be in a hurry about trying to make some money. And they're really still working on figuring out exactly how to do that, a lot of them. But they're not in a hurry to settle down and have a wife and all that. In fact, I saw a brother posted something on Facebook Saturday or Sunday about people in our community should start marrying their children off starting at like age 14 or 15.
Oh, that's extreme.
Yeah. I mean, it's a problem.
But the flip side to that is that they already have sex, then shouldn't they be married?
When? What do you mean?
If they're interested in it at 14 and 15. If they're interested
I wouldn't. The 14 and 15-year-olds that I know, I would barely just barely let them start up a riding lawnmower to do a big yard. Most of them are clueless. And they have at that point, they have no direction. I mean, their direction might be if they're a good athlete and they look up to their coaches or to some older kids on the team or something and think they have a shot at a scholarship or, you know, getting some NIL money or going pro or something, you know, kind of halfway be focused on that. And because of that, they'll pay attention in school just so they can stay eligible. But marriage, girls are something to mess with. They're not marriage. No, they're not thinking about that.
I remember when I was that age, and I remember one of my friends, she was ready to start, and she talked to her mom about it, that she was ready to start having sex. She was like 15. So if they're talking about that, shouldn't they be talking about marriage if you're talking about ready to have sex? Should that not be?
Ishmael, you're not that young. Every 14-year-old, 15-year-old, used to be 13, but it's actually started much later now with boys. So 14 and 15-year-old boy, he's thinking about sex 98% of the time. And if it's not the girl who just biked down the street, it's his friend's mom who drove him home in the car from school. He's trying to lean in and get a good look. That's real life. Yes. And every kid, every child all the boys that grew up with me, man, when we were in junior high school, it was like a bee swarm if there was a pretty girl around. We were all over that, trying to talk to her, trying to get her attention. Between classes, during class, during lunch break. It hasn't changed. They do it differently now. But you can't base it on the fact that hormones are going crazy. So if your hormones are going crazy, that's a good reason to get married. That doesn't make any sense.
No. I'm saying they're serious about. I mean, those things was going on when I was young, but I wasn't serious about having sex at that age. I mean, of course I was attracted, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't serious about it.
I was laughed at because I wasn't really ready to have sex. When I was 14 and 15, kids were bragging about having house parties and having sex. I was too scared. If I did something like that, my parents would have killed me. I was scared to death.
One thing that we are hearing and that we still hear and still recognize is that one, young people, boys in particular, I raised 3 sons, 3 daughters, and do not understand the biological changes that they're going through, what is happening to them, what is happening with the hormones, what is happening with their desires, and how that energy should be spent, and those years should be spent in a useful way to prepare for their future. And the other thing that our young people still don't understand and is not really cultivated in the way that it should be is the purpose of marriage and why marriage is important and why it's a sacred matter and the benefit of having a good wife. These things are not instilled correctly in our younger people, and not just our younger people, our older people, 50 and up, still haven't gotten it right, where they truly understand the benefit of having a wife, the benefit of being married and having a family, how it cultivates the human being, how it blesses the human being to become a person of paradise, the development of character, the moral fabric, and everything that goes along with it. All of this is still missing, where we think marriage is just an option for us, and it's not a serious matter.
Mm-hmm.
And until it becomes a serious matter where we realize the seriousness of it, you know, Allah says nowhere in the Holy Quran, get married if you want to. He commands us to this way of life. There's a reason for it. How many people have looked into why this is a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What's the reason for it being a command, not just an option that we have and we take it lightly and willy-nilly? So there is so much that we still don't understand, and that we are not really breaking down and instilling, and starting out with our youth, which has now transferred to many of our older people who still don't understand what it means to take a wife, and they get married and they start treating the woman as their personal servant.
Exactly.
And not really understanding the makeup of the woman, what the needs are, and the marriage is short-lived. In addition to that, they wait until they get older, where they have the physical issues, where they can't perform the way they should in the bedroom, and lead the woman on that they can, and not honest about that up front. And then there's another reason that marriages fail. So it's a long list of things that work against us. And not only that, you wait and get older after you're established, and now your children don't want you to marry because it's messing with their inheritance. Another issue that's on the table with older adults. So not understanding the sacredness of marriage and the purpose for it, we still treat marriage like we did sometimes when we were 13, 14, 15 years old, and haven't grown to the level of maturity to really understand the true dynamics of marriage and the benefit of marriage. So I'll just stop there. It's a lot to be learned, and it's not addressed enough.
No, we don't address it, and it is, in my judgment, it's a cornerstone. I mean, we talk about four birds and that all the time, and all that's important. But if you don't really and truly know how to process a marriage, live with another person with affection, with care, with virtue as a base, Quran and Sunnah as a base, you can't have a solid community unless it's everything is forced on you, you know, that you're going to be, if you don't do this, and if you don't stay there, you're ostracized and nobody can talk to you, and we forget you exist, and all that type of thing that goes on in some religious sects that I'm aware of. And that's no way to live either. We have to, Sister Munirah, you're right. We have to start addressing, and I try to do it with my two sons, addressing what it actually means to be in a relationship with a woman, and even more so, what it actually means to be married. And the joyful sacrifices that you have to be happy to make as a husband. And I mean, I'm really lucky that I have two kind of open-minded children to that extent. I mean, both of them have expressed the fact that they'd be stay-at-home dads. I would think that was weird, but they would be stay-at-home dads if the situation merited it. They can cook. They know how to clean a house properly. Both of them are becoming better decorators. We talk all the time about how to properly take care of children, the role of a father, the little things that, you know, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but when I grew up, the last person to eat was my dad. And when I was married and had children in the home, the last person to eat was me. Everybody in the house gets taken care of first. My wife's needs come before my needs. My children's needs come before my needs. And
Brother
those are just
little
little things to me. Go ahead, bro.
No, I thought you had when you paused. I thought you would if you was finished, but if not, I'll wait.
I am finished now. I just had that one little piece left.
I want to take us somewhat back to the mentioning of the youth, and then what I'm about to read is from the second half of Imam Warren D. Muhammad's khutbah. I don't have the year in front of me at this particular time, but I did use this back about a month or two ago in my series on marriage, the moral foundation of the Muslim community. This is from part 4 of my lecture series on that. So again, my second half of my khutbah, I used these statements from Imam Warren D. Muhammad in his second half of his khutbah addressing the issue of marriage and youth. And I'll start here. In concluding today's khutbah, I want to bring a concern to your attention about our youngsters and teenagers, especially our girls who enter into puberty and feel the desire for sex, which is natural. It's nature. They're living in an environment that is always questioning and undermining what is decent for people in religion want for their young girls. I made a typo there, so that's the reason I paused. Oh, hold on, I hit the wrong. Hope I didn't lose it. Okay, here we go. Tariq, leave your finger there. So we are aware of this. This is not to make you aware of it, only to tell you something and invite you to think about a long time ago when I was your Imam on 73rd and Stony Island Avenue. We have our lives as Muslims, and what is expected of the American public is not what is expected of Muslims. In the American public, it is expected that girls hopefully are going to attend high school, and if she can't qualify, the parents will want her to finish college and then think about marriage. The problem, and this is how it is being addressed. It is very difficult for the average girl to finish college without having a baby or violating the religion by having sex outside of marriage. And when any of our children survive this situation, we're so proud of them because we know they are not the average. They are very, very special when they survive the sex drive and go through college and then marry. It is wonderful if they can do that. But as I have said, most of them don't do that. And the great majority of our children don't make it. So what are we going to do about this? Again, I just found another typo. They have we in there. I want you to think about it again. We have girls who start feeling sex urges at 12, 13, 14, and 15 years of age. These are very trying years. So why don't we go back to the best of our human behavior that many of us had in the South, which is really our original Muslim behavior, the solution. That is, if this girl wants to have sex with this boy and the boy wants to have sex with her, and if we think they could make a good husband and wife in the future, let us have these two youngsters get married. We know they have to finish school, so let us support them. The family was an institution working in the best interest for their descendants and children to come. And the mother was taken care of by the elders in the family. If the grandmother was living, she would take care of the girl and her children by helping her with them as well as letting her attend school and become educated. Why can't we do this? This is Islamic. In Muslim countries, do you think the brothers and sisters, husbands and wives over there tell their children, you have to finish high school or you have to finish college, and when you're 35, you can get married? The intention is not for humor. The intention is to make us sensitive to this situation and then announce our position. We have our big Islamic convention coming this Labor Day weekend. And if we announce a position on this during this time, believe me, it will be heard by a lot of Muslims and non-Muslims too. This is going to be made public, and some of it will broadcast live on Christian families. Wait a minute, on the radio, where a lot of people will hear about this. We want Christians to think this way too. This is how they originally thought. The best of the Christian families used to think this way. So let us think about it very seriously, brother imams and leaders, the business people and our educators. Let us think about this very seriously for the next 2 weeks and get back to me and let me know what you think. If you approve of us calling for this attitude and position, we will announce that this is our position, the position of the Muslim American Society. This coming Labor Day celebration of our community Islamic convention, I'm prepared now. And then I got it's about two more paragraphs here. This is Al-Islam. I don't want my son, who will be old enough to look for a wife in a few years, wanting your daughter or anyone's daughter who is lazy, having I might have made a typo, so forgive me, Allah, and you all too. I don't know if this caused my memory for some reason, because I got the audio of this too. Having her spirit outside of the, having her spirit always, that's for her. Having her spirit always outside of the home instead of inside the home. So no, I don't want my son to have a woman like that. Now, he may want a woman like that when he gets older. I don't know what he will want, but I do know that I don't want that for him. And if he himself is like that, then I don't want him for a good girl. I would tell you, brother, this you are making a mistake. This son is not fit for your daughter. We are supposed to help each other as brothers and sisters, and we're supposed to tell each other that. Brother, you're making a mistake. This daughter of yours should not be married to this son of mine. And if all he wants to do is hang around the house and look at television until it gets dark. Then he wants to go out there and stay until it gets light again. He's not looking for any job. We should help each other, and I'm prepared to do that. This is Al-Islam. I'm not instituting something that is not Islamic. This is Al-Islam. Allah says the virtues for the virtues. Isn't this the Quran? Mates of like nature. So help me with this community. We want to save our children, and we want to save ourselves, because when they go to the hellfire in this life, they take us with them. So we pray to Allah to save us. And Allah says, "O you who have faith, save ourselves and our families from the fires of hell." Assalamu alaikum. And again, that was from the second part of Imam One's Deen Muhammad Kukba, and I used it for my second part of Kukba I did several months ago on marriage, the moral foundation of the Muslim community. Thank you for allowing me to share this.
No, that was good, and it's a challenge. I mean, he basically issued a challenge to the community, and it is challenging. If you meet it head on, it's very challenging, because there's a lot of stuff he didn't talk about that would have to be talked about.
Yeah, from my understanding, the community, they pushed back against it. They didn't want it, so I don't think he pushed it forward. If I'm not mistaken, they were like, nah. I think they was like a lot of like this. It was too much. Like a lot of people feel today that it's too much to. I don't agree with that. I think, like I said, I think it should at least be on your mind. If you're thinking about sex, you should be thinking about marriage and everything that comes with it, as far as I'm concerned. But A lot of the parents didn't want that, so he didn't push it forward.
See, I think when
Separation.
puberty hits,
Yeah.
it's incumbent upon parents to seriously start talking to their children about adult life and everything that comes with adult life. And I don't mean beat around the bush. I mean serious conversations about everything that goes on between a man and a woman. I don't think anything should be hidden. And yeah, the mom should talk to the daughter and the dad should talk to the sons. I'm okay with that. But I don't think that we're doing that today. I just don't think it's getting done. The other thing is that young women, they're smart enough to know that if they were to enter into one of those relationships when they're young, that the world is going to come down heavily on them to be the first ones to give up their dreams of going to medical school, going to law school, becoming a CPA, getting their master's in teaching, getting their master's in nursing, all of these things to sacrifice for the community, and thus being bossed around by a man who can't match their intellect. Because if you see what's happened with our young women, man, they're so far ahead. You just have to hear the clicking of their heels to know where they are up ahead, because they see a future and they're willing to work hard and make sacrifices for it. And I've heard young men say, "Hey, man, you need to tell that girl to get out of law school. How you gonna be with a woman that makes more money than you?" These are two young Muslim brothers talking. One telling the other one, the woman he's getting ready to marry, first thing you need to do is get her to drop out of law school. We can't have that either.
Yeah, and this comes down to preparation. I think one of the reasons that the community did not respond in a timely and more positive manner when Imam Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, made those statements, which are very good common sense statements that will work to serve a system to save our young people if they are prepared for it properly. So the fact that we were not preparing our young people for it far enough in advance, where the marriage being a sacred matter and a sacred trust, and the importance of marriage, all that groundwork was not laid far enough in advance for it to be effective, then there was pushback, because people don't want their children to get married just for sex. There have been situations where young people did marry early, and they are still married, and they have had a good life and a good marriage, but they were prepared for that process early in life. The fact that our young people don't know, and our boys in particular, that when you lay with a woman and you connect with a woman physically and you have sex with a woman, that is your wife. You have made a spiritual connection, a spiritual bond with this woman, and you now have responsibility to follow through with that. Understanding those processes, even on a physiological level, that are like passed over, and the relevance of it and the importance of the act is not even driven home to, and I'm talking about in the general society, it's not even driven home to our young people, and their moral fiber as a man, as a young man, and how it's going to affect him in every area of life, from continuing his education to being in business, to having relationships. All of these things, all this foundation has not been laid. And the foundation of even us being relational beings, that we are all born into communities, we're born into relationships, and the importance of connections and relationships and maintaining them and honoring them. Even the importance of that, how far is that even driven home to people in our society where so much is running rapid? Pornography, one night stands, booty calls, everything's been reduced to such base animalistic levels that the high regard that we have as human beings for each other is being overshadowed. And it's like, oh, I just want to have fun. I'm not thinking about getting married now, you know? But you're having fun at the expense of someone sacrificing their virginity, possibly a child being produced, who now needs a mother and a father. You know, so how are we thinking? How are we, what groundwork are we laying for our future generations? And what educational process and preparation is there for them? Marriage is something that has to be, you have to be groomed for and see a model of throughout your life in order to even know the importance of it and how it benefits us as human beings. So, you know, I'll stop there. And it's we're not treating it as very important. And when women step out to do things and going back to school and doing things like that, they're preparing themselves because they say, well, I might have to do this by myself. You know I had to make that decision. Say, I'm going to need more money in the future. I have these 6 children. I was divorced. I said, you're all going to need a start in life. You're going to need to finish your education. You're going to have to go to college. I need more income. So there's a time I'm working full time and going to college full time to prepare myself to have more income down the line. And these are decisions that I had to make as a woman because no one was stepping up to marry me with 6 children. And so I had some decisions that I had to make. So it's just, why is not your woman celebrated for being educated, for being a lawyer? What is the need for her to be less than you? That in itself tells us that the proper education has not been laid for our young men to continue to think that way.
Right.
I would be happy for my husband to have invested in something and become a lawyer and succeeded in something. Why is that not the reverse? And then there's so many parallels, you know. The women were educated under our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They became educators and teachers and working in the society to make the society better in their capacity as women, while their men were establishing businesses because they had to establish halal businesses so that they can have incomes that were pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to avoid the pagan ways. So all that we go through has been modeled for us during the life of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was a businessman himself, who married a woman more successful than he was, but that didn't stop him. He still took her business and blessed it to be even more successful. So we get caught up in the ignorance of this world sometimes, and it takes away from our own development as Muslims and Muslimas to put us on the right track and the right way of thinking and foundation that we need to be on in order to be successful. So I'll stop there.
No, those are good points. Everything you said is 100% true. And the only thing that I would add to that is that when we're talking to young people, young men and young women, about getting married and the responsibilities of getting married, and we are training them up to be successful in that, the younger that coupling is, when they're coupling very young, the family also has to be prepared. Because when they get married, where are they going to live?
Right.
There has to be room for them in the husband's parents' house, the wife's parents' house, grandparents' house. Maybe jointly somebody puts the money together to get them a house or help them with an apartment, because they both need to further their education. I don't care what it is. It's going to be an electrician or a plumber or, pipe hanger or a welder or a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever. You have to continue to better yourself and be prepared to better yourself in this life to the day that you are wrapped and placed in the grave. So we're talking about 17-year-olds getting married. The family has to have made as much or more preparation than the married couple for making their future life a success. And I wasn't around. I mean, I wasn't aware of when the Imam made that khutbah and reaction from the community or whatever, but I'm sitting here thinking, just in general terms, the most parents today, they're thinking, my daughter gets married and my son gets married, they're out of the house. That's one less mouth to feed. I don't have to worry about so-and-so borrowing my car.
It's totally different than the culture we had back in the past. Yeah. Our parents, our grandparents, they were raised to know how to live with someone else, to know how to be in a boarding house.
Right.
They were raised having a guest room in the house for guests to come and stay, for a parent that had to come and stay. They were raised with those connections. They were raised to have some land if they had to build a small structure for those purposes. But we were raised with more of a communal type of reality because we needed each other in that way. Okay? Now that we have taken on a materialistic, somewhat outlook on life, we lose those values, So a lot of young people now that are coming together, they are kind of circling back, and they ask those questions. What if my mother or father has a stroke? What if they need us? How are we going to manage that? Well, whoever you marry needs to love your mother and your father like they love their parents. That gives you an idea of the type of person you need to be with, and that helps you set some parameters for your life going forward and some planning and a vision for your relationship. And that vision is just not about having sex and accumulating the material, but it's the contribution to the society through the family life that we adopt that helps us. And it's so much has been done and so much has been introduced into our planning and outlook on family and marriage that has taken us away from having healthy outlooks on even having good relationships and successful relationships with someone. that takes work and development of a character to have a good, healthy relationship even. And how many of us really strive for that and really want that for ourselves and want to do that type of work in life and know the benefit of it. So it's going to go back to us revisiting things that we have lost and reshaping our outlooks on our relationships, on our families, on the importance of it, on legacy, of the future, of being a part of a community, making that positive contribution, setting those good examples. All of those things that were foundational to us at one time that we might have lost in the shuffle really, really have to be revisited and reestablished in our lives. And, you know, men knowing the importance of having a wife. I was in a setting once where it was asked of brothers, why don't you all show up to these single socials? And so many sisters wanting to get married. And their response was, we don't want to be nagged. They looked at the sisters as nagging them, you know, and putting pressures on them that they really didn't want, you know. And if it's something good, I mean, she's not asking you to go do something haram or rob a bank or do something that would be displeasing to Allah. If you have a good wife and she's asking you to do something beneficial and good, why is that nagging? Why is that not something that you would be willing to do and proud to do as a part of being in a relationship and being married? You know, our mindset has kind of tilted to less is more. The less that I'm asked to do, the less that I'm asked to show up, the less responsibility I have to step up and perform, the better for me. I'm free. But free from what? So it's a big catch-22 that we have right now. How can we have that community life without that level of responsibility? I'm gonna say this one last thing and I'm gonna stop. I listened to this interview of Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis. And they were talking about how they had to change their lives once they both started to get busy with their careers and they had small children and things of that nature. And she was saying about her concerns about, you know, being away from home filming and everything like that. And he came up with the solution, well, if you have to go to here to film, we're all going. You know, we're taking the family with us. You know, we're going to stay together as a family and we're going to operate that way. And she brought up a different insight that she had. And his response to her was, I didn't know you thought that way. If I had known you thought that way, I would have been happy to do XYZ. And her response was, well, it all worked out. That's why I never said anything to it, because you took care of it without me saying anything. So these type of dynamics in a relationship, but he said it right there on camera. If I had known you thought that way, I would have been happy.
Yeah, that was a beautiful interview. I witnessed, I heard that.
You heard that? Yeah.
Yeah, and that was very, very inspiring.
Yeah. So that kind of optimism and that willingness to work together, to have someone in your life to willing to work to better your life and you're willing to work to better theirs. Those dynamics in a marriage, we're covering for each other. We to help each other, to encourage each other. Who doesn't want that? If you don't want that, what do you want? So you can see why the progress is not being made that needs to be made without that willingness. If you're not willing to do that for the person you're with every day, day in, day out, the mother of your children, the father of your children, who are you willing to do that for?
Great. And like you say, Brother Willis, I think part of the pushback when the Imam was pushing for was that the parents weren't prepared to support the children that, were interested. So I think it was twofold. They weren't raised that way, nor were most of the parents prepared to be a support system for the ones that chose to get married and go about their education while being married and maybe even having children while still being educated. I don't think a lot of them, a lot of us parents, well, I was probably young back then when he said that. I was probably one of the ones that was one of the young people. But go ahead.
Well, to a point, and since you brought that up, it ended up to be, and I'm just making a blank statement now, not just to the Muslim. I'm saying it as the African American community. When we look, we have that situation where that girl is still in boy too now, they're still in high school and they bring about a child. So don't that end up being what the Imam was talking about? That mother or those parents of that girl, they end up helping her take care of and raise that child.
They do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to add that, and thank you for letting me cut in.
And then a lot of times that the male isn't involved like he should be, because like I tell my people once you have the definition of intercourse is nikah. That's once you have that's marriage in nature, nikah. So and nikah is marriage, but a lot of times they do it like our sister was saying, it's done without a contract. Most of the time, and a lot of times that contract is broken once you move on to the next person.
Yeah,
and that should be a sacred bond. And I'm not naive. I know they're going to do what they want to do. But just like when I was young, I was aware of and very careful with the choices I made. And I at least want that to be on their mind. I don't want them to think, like a lot of society, like, this is just a free for all and you can do what you want to do, YOLO. Just have some type of understanding that if you do choose to do that, there's consequences for it. I at least want to put that on their mind. I was speaking with a bunch of men. We had a meeting last Wednesday, mostly Christian men. One of my best friends is a pastor, and he always invites me, to these events.
Good.
And they were talking about one young man. There's a lot of trouble. It was a few college age. They were like, one of them was really troubled. And he was just, I just want to get better. He wants to improve. And they were telling him all this stuff about improving. Go to the library. Get with people of like nature. And I was telling them that. I told him after he normally lets me speak last, and I told him all those were good ideas, but the most important way to improve is your moral improvement, your moral intelligence. Right. That's the most important improvement that you want to make, and everything else. If you're working on your morals, and then you start working on other things, everything else will fall into place. And they were telling them, wait till you, they're in college, say, wait till you don't get married right now. Don't get married right now. And I was telling them, I said, remember what I said about the morals? You want to be morally right. So I'm saying the opposite. I think you should be looking for that, especially when you're in college, looking for that mate that you want to marry. So like I say, and they were Christian. It was pastors, 4 or 5 pastors in there. They all had that same attitude. They all said, don't get married yet. But we know sex comes with when you're a certain age. So you're basically telling them to have sex without being married. Right. That's how I look at it. So I just put it on their mind. And then at the end, my friend, he was the host, and he said, the moral intelligence is the best thing. And he kind of brought it back like, we got to look at morals first. So we just got to put it on their mind, at least put it on their mind. And I told him afterwards, I said, a lot of times we just go back to normal. After we've had these conversations, just like, don't go back to what's normal for you. Don't go back to
Mm.
go think about what we said and try to do, try to improve on some of those things that you go back to that aren't as, as good as they should be. And then the things you're doing good, keep doing those. So, but yeah, it's good that we talked to them, and it's real out here. I just try to keep that on my mind, and I'll stop there.
Well, I have I don't have any children of my own, but I've had the I would say the beautiful responsibility of helping raise some nieces and nephews, and now great nieces particularly. And the oldest one of what I'm talking about now, she graduated 2 years ago, and I talked to them in the right way concerning sex and everything, and it proved the point, because the one that graduated 2 years ago, she had a baby last year. And I was talking to her recently. I said, Alexa, I say, now I've seen the father at you all's little, what they have, the celebration of when the child is born, I forget what you call that. And so I say, where is he at now? Oh, he's in Florida working. I say, so you're not getting any money from him? She said, no. I say, so like I told you years ago, all that little boy wanted to do, it's a natural thing for a little boy, for girls too, to come into that sex urge. And I say, he got what he wanted, so he gonna move on to the next girl. I say, I hope he changed his mind and start helping you out with this boy. But that's what exists in our community now, that he see that young girl and he want to go into her and he move on to the next.
Exactly. That's what
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
yeah. And so I think when you start having these uh, conversation with them to get them to realize that is what's happening. And then and I think some of these things followed us from the plantation life. I really do, where they had breeding farms, and you had all these babies being born, and so we somewhat challenged with that now, because you got, and they glorifying it on social media, because I see different reels coming through, and I'm seeing they glorify. And I'm not against anyone having multiple children. Let me get that clarity on that. But what I'm seeing is that uh, multiple children by different men, and that
Mm-hmm.
is, in my opinion, that goes from our ancestry life of when our ancestor was on the plantation, which we had no control of it now. But now you got um, you remember that scene in Fences, when the role Viola and Denzel was playing, when he told her he had that other baby, that scene, and she was talking about she never wanted that for her life, my daddy, his daddy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's where we are, because this particular great niece that I'm talking about, she's a very respectful young girl. She had intentions of going to the Air Force, and now she still can go, but you should have gone immediately when you graduated high school without the baby, and everything. So her mother, let me see, it's four. Let me see, four girls and a boy, and all of them have different fathers. So, but that's what existed now, and I don't know about the Caucasian families, but I know it's in the African American community. Yeah.
I remember, I want to say it was on Sister Munirah's program that someone brought up mention that at the end of slavery, beginning of the Reconstruction era, that there were African Americans, men and women, who would travel miles, sometimes across state lines, to go back and reunite with a man or a woman that they had jumped the broom with on a plantation, but then they had been sold and separated. And for my own family history, of which we have a very extensive history of my family, my dad's side, dating back to the late 1700s. Well, no, 17th century, 1600s. Plantation life, life after slavery ended, of there rarely ever being a broken home, and almost no mention, and I'm sure there's some dirt out there that wasn't mentioned in this book. This book's in the National Archive now. This idea of having children by multiple women, and I can't believe it's only my dad's side of the family was like this. That there's very little of that, and there's a lot of discourse on when the change happened. You know, whether it started happening during the Harlem Renaissance, or it started happening during the Second World War, at the end of the Second World War, if it started happening in the early 50s, if it started happening around civil rights movement and all these things that happened in the 60s, when there started to be a change in the overall stability of the African American family. I don't know exactly. I've never been able to put my finger on it exactly. So what I have to go on is anecdotal evidence and some historical evidence, because I've got my family tree very extensive. Is that it is in the nature of the African American to be in a stable family and tribal situation. And in those family and tribal situations, it is in our nature to look out for others that are in that family or in that tribe. You know, I heard, maybe it was you, I think it may have been Sister Munirah, who was talking about you trying to go to school, having children, responsibilities of family and stuff like that. So one of my older sisters, she's a retired school teacher. So she got married. I want to say she got married at 19, and she had her oldest son. She got married in Texas. They moved to Newark. My nephew, her oldest son, was born there in Newark. And about a year and a half after he was born, she got divorced, came back to Texas. And at that point, I want to say she's probably now 23, 24 years old. She's 9 years older than me. She decided that she wanted to go to school. She started at community college level and get an education, because she was a single mom now. So she's working, she's going to school. Norman, my nephew, every morning she drops Norman off at our house to us. My mom obviously takes care of him, breakfast, kindergarten, the whole shooting match, everything. So my sister remarried, wonderful man. My brother-in-law, he's deceased now, but really wonderful man. She has 2 more children with him. And at this time, she's in the midst of getting her bachelor's degree, 3 kids. They live maybe 3 city blocks from us. Same routine every morning. Here they come. 3 kids come down to the house, sitting around the breakfast table having breakfast. And my sister's off to go to work or go to school or whatever. Her husband, he worked in the oil field. He had to be out there at like 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning. So he's been gone. This goes on for about 4 years, well, 3 years, while she goes ahead and gets her master's degree. And part of the time that she's getting her master's degree, She's living 100 miles away from where I grew up in Odessa, Texas, going to the University of Texas Permian Basin to get her master's degree in education. And she's gone during the week. She's home on weekends. Now, I didn't grow up in a big house. And my mom and dad had 4 kids of their own. My sister and an older sister were my mother's children from her first marriage. My mother was widowed when she met my dad. But we made that work. And if those children, because of my brother-in-law having sometimes be away, working in oil field, moving drilling rigs and stuff like that, if he couldn't make it, they slept at our house, they ate at our house. The mentality of people, and I'm talking 60s into the 70s, the mentality of people, not just my family, every family that I knew, was that the family is going to do everything possible to bring about the success of the next generation and the generation after that. And everything that you needed to know about how to manage, you were going to learn hands-on in a happy way. People were happy to show you, happy to help you learn, happy to give you advice about this, that, and the other. Boy, you don't treat that girl like that. Boy, when so-and-so speaks to you, you say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, so on and so forth. And not in a gruff way, but in a teaching way, because everybody cared that you were going to be individually successful and the entire community is going to be successful, because whatever happened, whether the light shined on you or the ashes fell on you, it was a reflection on all of them. That's community to me.
This society, they push the nuclear family as mother, father, 2.5 children. That's what they push as the nuclear family. And so many people buy into that. And in my opinion, it should be much bigger than that. The traditional family should include, parents, aunts, uncles, whatever your need, people that are able to help you move forward. And I think if we had that more of an attitude, especially us as African Americans, I think we'd be more comfortable and more prepared to live with people that are not just husband, wife, and children. And we could do a lot more and achieve a lot more. And I'll stop there.
We have to do it. So, I mean, there's a very good chance that for a certain percentage of our population in the next 9 to 18 months, that a lot of us are going to be in that situation of having to depend on, having to give aid to, having to come together for sake of comfort, survival even, that we're going to have to go back to the old ways. And looking at extended family as being nuclear family. And in a way, I'm the last person in the world to ever feel that there should be stress or discomfort or tragedy or anything like that turns people to doing right. I hate that as a reason. I'm down on my luck, so I'm going to go pray to God. And you should have been praying to God when you had $1 million in your pocket.
That's right.
So I'm the last person to want that, but I got a feeling it's coming. And I hope people are intelligent enough to realize that amidst the turmoil that they're being given a gift of reunification with their true nature and with the nature that Almighty God wants us all to have. So, but man, the other thing, there were a couple of things when we were talking about marriages and stuff like that. So one thing that gets me is distance. And I know some people try this. I don't know how many people make it work, but long distance marriages, I have zero interest in a long distance marriage. That just absolutely makes no sense to me. And a lot of our 50 and up population, individuals that you could see yourself with happily, they don't live anywhere near you. So the compromise on that, man, that's a tough one sometimes.
Yes, sir.
Potentially, you're moving away from family, friends, places that you're comfortable, I mean, professionally, excuse me, everything. So that's one thing. The other side of the coin is if you stay within your community where you've been, is that all your potential marriage partners appear to be incestuous. Like you're thinking about marrying a brother who was married to your best friend, and you were married to his cousin. But before that, you were married to the guy he works for, who's now married to somebody else that, whatever. It's like marrying a first cousin. Everybody knows everybody else's business. Everybody's been married to everybody else. That would drive me crazy. How do we? I know there's no easy solution, but we have to talk about that at some point in time. Because Newark to LA is a heck of a journey, or LA to Newark is a heck of a journey. No matter how much you care about each other, and you could have a successful union, and somebody's moving out of their comfort zone. So, Sister Munirah, how did you manage? Oh, she just happened to be away from the screen.
I wasn't expecting the question.
You weren't expecting that question, were you?
I was thinking about it. Well, one thing, I started traveling for work back in 2014. So traveling was not an issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Boston for 3 years and worked in Boston. Then I moved back to Illinois and worked. Then I went back to Massachusetts, but to Springfield, Massachusetts, and lived for 3 years. And I left there and went to Indianapolis, Indiana, and lived and worked. So moving, meeting people, and everything was not an issue for me. My children were grown. I actually enjoyed it. And so that part was not a big issue for me. If I can speak of an issue, it would be that you're going into a community where someone was already established with a wife of 43 years who had deep roots in the community, and you're the new person. So you're always looked at as a comparative way. And then you slowly get to know people and things of that nature. So, but that wasn't really an issue. There's a whole lot of things that go on when you're older and you marry someone who's lived a whole life and you've lived a whole life, and coming together and making it work, which is a good reason to marry early and build a life together and let that follow you into your old age. With your family connections and everything, it's easier that way, you know. But there's nothing wrong also with getting married locally. For years, I was Habeel's wife. Even after we were divorced, you know, people would refer to me as Habeel's wife. I'm like, well, I'm not his wife anymore, you know. And but I was always known as that, so it was impossible to meet someone like you said, you know. So the way we treat each other in those scenarios, all that really has to be addressed and changed. And you're thinking about community and being in community. It's really nothing wrong with it to remarry in your community where your life is established. But every couple has to navigate that for themselves. You can be very involved in your grandchildren's lives who are right there in that community and getting them to and from school, like you said about your parents doing and things of that nature. So it's not convenient for you to move across the state. So every couple has to set those parameters and have that type of marriage based on the lives that they have established and what works for them and what they can navigate and what makes them happy. But with all things, there needs to be honesty. You know, if you know you have 3 storage units full of stuff that you've crammed into there, uh, leading someone to think you're this organized person, then you get married and you slowly start emptying out your storage and bringing things back to the house. You know, honesty is going to make everything work better with your lifestyle, the type of life you're going to live, how you're going to function, how you're going to work in the community. It's the honesty of it all and the um, willingness to support, be there for each other, encourage each other, uh, and have all those good characteristics that we should have in relationships with each other. That is going to make or break the relationship. But honesty and truthfulness is going to be at the foundation of it all. And you can make anything work. You can make a relationship work with those ingredients, your taqwa, your honesty, your encouragement, and everything as a foundational element in your relationship. You have something solid to build on.
Should there be a test that every man has to show that he has the ability to bake a cake, and that every woman should show that she at least knows the fundamentals of changing a tire?
Well, yeah, there's definitely a conversation that should be had, and there are tests, health tests that the man and woman should take and present to each other and have those conversations because it's important to your life. Everything that's important to your life, we should have a conversation about it uh, and come to a meeting of the minds, you know. And again, your vision for marriage and the relationship that you're looking forward to having or what you're used to, all of those conversational elements should be present. You're sharing your life with someone else.
Oh, wait.
So you bring someone into a life that they're not sure of what it's going to be like. Is that fair? No.
That's unfair.
Yeah, that is unfair. So the clarity, truthfulness, honesty, again, at the foundation, and knowing the type of life you're asking someone to share. If you have, there just been all kind of stories out about things that were problematic about people coming together later in life that weren't discussed and weren't agreed upon.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, you're sharing someone's life, a life that they have lived for years, and they're sharing your life. So that honesty and truthfulness and the taqwa and willingness to do what's correct and what's right, what's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's going to be foundational at all ages, but especially for people in the winter of their years, inshallah.
So I don't know how many of I missed the opportunity to be in Philadelphia. I was ill, so I was not able to be there. But those of you, if any of you were there, outside of the marriage social, which I understand went off pretty well, was there any discussion about these topics, even in like the presentation of the 2008 and beyond group? Was there anything given to community life and strong, healthy families and things of that nature?
I unfortunately wasn't there. I wasn't present there. Myself, I didn't make it to Philly, but looking at past events and those conversations, we still run into those situations where sisters show up. A lot of brothers have a different approach. They don't want to show up. They don't want that pressure on them in public with single socials for some reason, and they continually don't show up for those events. And so that is problematic to some degree. That attitude is still prevalent. But specifically, the community was setting courses to go forward with what Imam Muhammad taught us. Okay. And the specifics of it as it relates to marriage, I'm not apprised of. I haven't gotten any reports on that other than the marriage social.
Okay. Yes, I mean, I listen to a lot of khutbahs. I mean, Imam Tariq, I listen to your khutbahs. I listen to Yahya's khutbahs every now and then. Imam Shuaib, I'll hear his, whoever happens to be delivering the khutbah on Friday in Atlanta, Imam Omar Shaker in San Antonio. I listen to a lot of khutbahs over a 2-day period, Fridays and Saturdays. I don't hear that much conversation about marriage, and I don't really hear that much conversation about building community life. You hear it every now and then. I actually almost say that because I knew Imam Yahya when he was in Dallas, and I knew him pretty well. I mean, as well as you can kind of know somebody who's not a close friend. He talked then, and he still does talk a lot about community life. But even I think in his case, a lot of times it's very general in nature. Imam Tariq, I missed your series on it. Probably go back and see if I can find some of those to see how direct you were.
But I know now Facebook has changed their what you
oh, that's
call
right.
it.
They didn't keep the recordings anymore, do they?
Yeah, they don't keep them. They only keep them for 30 days now.
Did you have a chance to download any of yours?
You know, there's one thing I did not do.
Okay.
Is download them. So I think I need to start doing that. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I mean, I'm saying all that to say that, from the minbar, I do think that there needs to be a more serious message about it. And
I do.
And let me just finish briefly. And
okay.
I think that in every community, once a month, Talim, separate class altogether that is maybe bi-weekly. Weekly would probably be great to start, but bi-weekly, that there should be almost like continuing education classes on marriage, family life, community life. If the situation is as serious as some people that I respect are leading me to believe, then I think we have to get very serious about dealing with it.
Mm.
And I mean, no holes barred. Obviously, no bad language or no aggressive action toward people, but I think that it's time to take the gloves off.
Well, now that one, if pardon, are you finished, Brother Edward?
Yes, sir. Please.
That's not the first one. I did one a few years back. It was in 8 parts. This one, I think, was 4. The one I did, like I said, about 2 months ago. It was 4 parts. And, you know, I've had a few sisters reach out to me, asking me, do I have any brothers here, you know, in our masjid here in Biloxi,
Right.
who's looking for a wife. And I brought it to the attention to one brother, and his response was, I'm leaving my house to my daughter. And I'm like, that is not what we're discussing, who you leaving your house to. I said, because your daughter is not guaranteed to get that house. She could pass before you. And I said, so, and they, you know, there's brothers who has the resources to take a wife who haven't been married in quite a while, but they say this, I don't want to be married. And then when you bring to their attention, of course, what's in the Quran, where Allah say, marry the virtuous ones from amongst you, and I just deal with that translation there. And then I think I mentioned early on what Prophet Muhammad said concerning, you know, if you don't choose to marry, you're not of his tradition. But the excuses again that's being said are not acceptable when you have the resources or things in place to marriage. Because again, in my assessment and conversation with sisters, many of them they want to be married. Particularly when you're at a certain age, you already have gotten certain things. You just want that husband, you know. And so, but all one has to do is keep saying it. And I'm not taking myself out the equation, because currently, I must admit, I'm not married, but I have never taken on the mindset that I don't want to be married or I will not marry again, because I just can't accept that and everything. And the number of excuses, I say, bro, look, bring this to that sister's attention. If you're challenging this area, etc., whatever that area it is that you're challenging, finances, this and that, you pick up paper for a living, whatever, cut grass for a living, bring that to that sister's attention, and then let her make the decision on what you all want to do. But just don't say you use that as an excuse to do that. Now I'm gonna end with this one. Now earlier I had to step away just for a second, but were you talking about marriages where one spouse live in one city and another one live in a different city? Is that what you mean?
That's about the loosest kind of marriage I can think of, but it does happen.
Yeah, I done lived that, brother.
How was that exactly?
I said, wait a minute, did I ever tell him that? 5 years. 5 years.
Wow.
And I was going from, it was challenging to save money. I would drive get someone to take me to New Orleans to catch my flight, because I always flew Southwest and get those nonstop from New Orleans to Oakland. And so when
Whoa,
you
whoa, whoa,
leave
whoa,
here,
whoa! You were in
yeah,
Biloxi. She
yeah,
was in Oakland,
no, north of Oakland. That's where I
north of
flew
Oakland. Oh
into.
my goodness!
Yeah, north of Oakland. So that it was begin to get taxing on me, because again, you got what, hour and a half to the airport in to New Orleans, and then you got that trip. Maybe every once in a while, I had a layover, but most of the flights I got were nonstop. And so, but still, I had another 2 hours based on, when you catch the commuter bus from Oakland to the city that I was going to, because they had other stops to make and this and that. And so that put a toll on you. And every 3 months for what, 5 or 6 years, I was going back and forth from here to that location in California.
You were married, and you basically saw your wife 4 times a year.
If that's how you calculate it.
You said once every 3 months.
But about almost every 3 months, yes. I was
So
here, and then I go out there for about a month, and then I come back.
okay, so you would go spend a month. It's like you're at the war, and they give you compassion leave for a month to go see your wife.
That's a good way to see it. and a few times she came here, but most of the times I went there.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was challenging. It was challenging. Yes.
What would you say was the ultimate demise of the marriage?
At this time, I would choose not to get into that. If you accept that,
I will accept
yeah,
that. I will accept
yes,
that.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. I'm gonna choose not to get into that. But it's something. I'm gonna say this. I don't think I ever want to do that again. And the other challenging part of it is I would say, well, she wasn't of our orientation. I put it in that context. Okay. And that was another challenge. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So
Sister,
not that it was conflicting, but you
mm-hmm.
have to know how to manage certain things.
Right.
And because when you're raised a certain way with an understanding of Al-Islam and these cultural um, backgrounds and everything, I would just say this: her father was Lebanese and her mother was Ghanaian, but she was raised in the Lebanese environment from a child, from the age of 5 to the adult life. And so you had all those cultural challenges and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
was she even nominally Muslim?
I'm trying to see how to answer that.
Because she could have been Druze. She could have had Christian and Muslim influence.
I think. Wow, I can't. Mm, wow, I can't give a reply right now. Yeah. But I do. She was. Let me just. I think if I should answer it this way, she was very appreciative of the teachings that, in my understanding of Al-Islam, she's very appreciative of that, and so I have to point that out. And again, with being with the sober and clear teachings that we've gotten, and everything, and it was a somewhat, I had to make a big adjustment too. But would never been forceful with anything. But we, and like I said, it went that length of time, and so we didn't plan on doing it that way, but it ended up happening that way. Yeah. So yeah, but I don't know if I would recommend anyone to live in a situation like that. It's not, no. No.
Yeah, that's been very difficult. My family is very diverse right now as well. My oldest daughter, she married a Chinese brother. So I have grandchildren that are Chinese, African American. I have a granddaughter that's African American and Pakistani. I have granddaughters that are African American and Latino. So in all of those environments, when I go in those environments, I always feel like I'm proving myself as a true human, as someone worthy of their respect. And in the Pakistani environment, it was how well do I know my Islam? And I thought I had to prove that in that environment, but I did gain their respect in that environment. So it's very important when you are connecting with someone that you're duplicating what is home to you.
Right.
You know, and you're extending your home family. And sometimes the fact that you may have to address racism within your own family is taxing, or people are not as comfortable as with you or around you as you would like them to be, as far as them being your family, can be taxing as well. All these things can add stress and strain on a relationship as well. So it's very important to create the home environment within the marriage.
Yeah.
You know, well, so it is an extension of your family.
Well, you know, since some of those things that you mentioned, sister, it take me back. One of the things, the masjid that I started out, because she was already attending the masjid, well, it was a predominantly Arab masjid. Of course, you had those cultural differences of the separation in the Musalla area. And then periodically, now, it was 20-minute, 30-minute drive from where we would live at, where we would go to the masjid. In another direction, it was another 20, 30-minute drive to a predominantly Pakistani masjid. Same situation, you know. And she complained about both masajes. Right? So, and then I didn't get anything out of either one going there, because both kukbas was done all in, I don't know if the Pakistani was doing it all in Arabic or somewhat, you can hear some Arabic, was he doing it in Urdu? But the Arab predominantly masjid, the Imam, he would do his kukba, and then his assistant would get up for the second half and read it over the whole kukba basically in English. Okay, so that ran its course for me, and I came to the conclusion. I said, I'm gonna stop going to either of these massages when I'm out here. So I call Imam Fahim and asked him to confirm the time. You know, Shuab, I'm sure you all know him. To ask him to confirm the time of his khutbah, and he told me. And so I started staying at home and observing the Jummah that way. So and everything. So it can be challenging, and everything. Yeah, it can be very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Sister Khalidah has her hand up. Sister Munirah, let her jump in real quick.
Oh, she back.
Yeah. You sound like one of those urban movies. She back.
Yeah.
Sister Munirah, Sister Khalidah, go ahead.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Brother Edward Willis, for hosting this.
Assalamu alaikum, Khalidah.
Wa alaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah. I wanted to Just reiterate that Prophet Muhammad, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he did have marriages that were close together. He actually married people within his family, and he had one relative that divorced a relative to be with somebody more compatible. So I know it can be a little uncomfortable. However, sometimes these marriages can work. They can work if people are respectable, if you don't have a lot of envy and jealousy, and also if you have your own personal space. But just wanted to put that out there. They are halal, and Allah does permit those. So even though it may be a little uncomfortable, anything that's worth having is worth being a little uncomfortable for if that's that right person, because it's really very difficult to find somebody who is just right for you. So don't hesitate because of that. That's what I want to share, because I heard something earlier which was very relevant that Brother Edward said about almost like incestual, but it's a whole lot better than what's being done or cheating behind somebody's back or marrying somebody's ex or whatever. It's a halal way of doing it. And if you're Muslim and if everybody in it is mature and are able to move forward with their life, it can be a very beautiful, beautiful thing. But Prophet Muhammad did it. So if he did it and he was the best model, then we can look at it in terms of that, but also assess the people involved, because from experience, somebody who's an irate ex can make your life a living hell, or somebody who's insecure or jealous or what have you. So if you choose to do that, I would advise you to assess your situation, have those talks and communication on what the expectations are, and be transparent, and also see how those people interact in that environment, in the masjid, wherever you're at. Do they have peaceful interactions now? What are what is the relationship that they had, and how are they navigating in life now? And then, so you don't put yourself in a compromising situation, because peace is everything. All right. Thank you.
So Khalidah said something that was interesting, jealousy, that someone brought that question up to me concerning what I said to sister that lived in California, and I was, et cetera, going back and forth. And I say, no, I don't think that exists for either of us. We never even, that didn't bother us. I know one time I had called and I heard the man voice in the house. I kept on conversating on why I called out there. She told me, I said, well, okay, then I'm fine with that, because I have never lived like that, being suspicious of someone, because that's very dangerous when you let suspicion run you. And because I said early on that if you feel that this has ran its course, I would rather for you to let me know ahead of time without you violating ruining, violating your soul or whatever I said, in doing something wrong. You don't want to do that and everything, but for to have suspicions, it's not good at all. And I never went to sleep worried what was going on when I'm not there. That is not good at all.
Alhamdulillah. Yes.
Yeah, that's not.
But also, that's good that you did that, because I know you shared that you had a long distance relationship, a marriage. It wasn't a relationship. It's a key difference, for about 5 years. And mashallah, it is what it is. But I wanted to also say, like, if you're going into something that's close knit within a masjid, I've seen all hell break loose. The people who act like that they didn't give a flip, they had got over the person. But a lot of people are not honest with themselves. They say one thing, but when they actually see that person with somebody who they know is going to be good for them, or they, whatever reason, they're insecure in their own selves, they really make a lot of frivolous things up. They can, not everybody, but I've seen it in more than one situation. That people, they wanted conflict, they want somebody to be, and even if it's just the other person's not even worried about it, they try to look for some fitna. So I don't know if it's just because people think there should be fitna if somebody's close knit and you're with that person's ex. It doesn't have to be like that. That is un-Islamic. That is for the birds, is what I'm saying. So if you do marry within a masjid, know the dynamics. Don't go in there just thinking everything is hunky-dory, so to speak. Know the dynamics, meet with the people, meet with the family and the imam, and have clear expectations for the person that you're sharing your life with. That you are no nonsense. You're not going to allow anybody to abuse or disrespect your marriage, and you're not going to accept that from them either. And I think that would help, because some people have different tolerance levels, and some people are just they avoid everything that they need to do, and that puts that spouse in a compromising situation. But absolutely, Imam Tariq, never create false suspicions if you don't have any reason to do that. And thank you so much.
No, it can be dangerous. I've seen situations like that, but I think a lot of that, I established that early on, that I'm not suspicious, I'm not accusing and questioning, interrogating all this and that, because neither one of us should fall in that category and everything. And that was established, and it worked out good. And she was surprised of it, particularly that incident when like I said, when I called and she started explaining to me who that man was. I'm like, okay, that's not okay. I didn't want it really, I said, all right then, because et cetera, et cetera. He was a technician working on something there. And I said, that's not why I called. And I think she was surprised, because I've sensed that, a lot of people bring past situations with them into that new situation. And it can be psychologically. You cannot move on because you still got that last husband. You're bringing him in the house, and this metaphorical I'm talking about. I'm not talking about physically. Or that last wife, you're bringing them into your home, in your mind, and things like that. You have to leave that where you left it at, and not bring it into your new situation, and because that could be very dangerous. Making unnecessary comparisons and things like that.
Absolutely, especially when there's children, when there's small children that come over bi-weekly, it's a whole lot of dynamics. So it's hard to just leave that person out if you got to meet and pick up your children. So look at the whole thing in its entirety, because very intelligent people, very professional people, when it comes to matters of the heart, you say we're Muslim, but sometimes you see a whole nother side of people that you would not even have imagined at the caliber of person that you had envisioned and had always seen them at the masjid. When it comes to matters of the heart, people they step out of character sometimes, not everybody. And so just keep that in mind, anybody who's listening, and make sure you're on your deen and you not driven by your emotions. I know for myself, I'm very strong in what I feel, but when I give and when I decide to move, it's 100%. And I expect the same thing, inshallah. But thank you. This is an excellent program. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, it is. And I must end at this time right here, and you all please forgive me.
No, it's almost, it's getting time for Maghrib for us.
Yeah, so it's in here.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you, Imam Tariq, to close us out.
Oh, okay then. All right. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Our Lord, bestow good upon us in this life, and bestow good upon us in the life to come, and save us from the torment of the fire. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your contributions. It's a wonderful program tonight. Talk to you all soon.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.